All right, let's dive straight into the energy surrounding the Golden State Warriors right now, because the buzz coming out of training camp and media day has fans fired up for what could be one of the most intriguing seasons in recent memory. This is not the same type of roster we've seen in those championship runs when the Warriors seemed unstoppable, but what stands out is the mentality. From the veterans who have lived through the battles to the younger guys just starting to carve their roles, everyone seems to understand exactly what's expected. The newcomers aren't just here to fill minutes. They're here to learn, to grow, to buy into a system that's always been bigger than any single player. And when you look at the core of Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy, there's an understanding that championship habits don't just happen. They're built every single day, and the younger players are showing they want to embrace that. The message from the group has been clear: build off the momentum from last season. When the Warriors pulled off that turnaround after the trade deadline, going on that impressive run, the team felt like it had suddenly been thrown into playoff basketball for months straight. They clawed their way back into relevance. And even though injuries derailed what could have been a deeper postseason push, the players left those games with a sense of purpose. They felt dangerous again, and that feeling has carried into this year. The difference now is that Jimmy Butler is here from the start, and that changes everything. Last season, when he arrived mid-year, the team was scrambling to find an identity. This time around, with a full camp, full workouts, and time to gel, the group believes they're ahead of the curve. One of the biggest themes out of camp has been chemistry, and that's where Jimmy's mini training camp really comes into play. Players talked about how much it mattered to spend time together before the official practices began. It wasn't just about drills or scrimmages. It was about team dinners, off-court bonding, and building the trust that championship groups always seem to have. Young guys like Moses Moody raved about being around that type of atmosphere, something many of them had never experienced before. Those small moments add up, and they give the team a chance to start strong instead of falling into the same early season holes that put pressure on them last year. Everyone knows how critical it is for Golden State to jump out to a hot start, because if they stumble early, the narrative of finger-pointing can creep in, and nobody wants that in a locker room with championship aspirations. Of course, it hasn't all been about bonding and positive vibes. A shadow still hangs over the team with Jonathan Kuminga's situation. His future remains a question mark, and while the young players avoided getting into details, the veterans were pressed about it heavily. Steph, in particular, handled the subject with the kind of poise that has defined his entire career. He reminded everyone that the NBA is a business, that players have every right to handle their contracts and secure their futures. But he also made it clear that if Kuminga is back, they expect him fully bought in. That balance between compassion for a teammate and laser focus on winning is exactly why Steph has become the face of the franchise and earned comparisons to leaders from other sports who always found ways to keep their locker rooms unified. His message was simple: take care of your business, but when it's time to lace up, there can be no doubt about the commitment. Jimmy's tone on Kuminga was more laid back. He's been through tough negotiations before, he's seen teammates get moved, and he knows these situations resolve one way or another. His perspective was that everything will sort itself out, whether Kuminga stays or goes. Draymond, on the other hand, gave a much more detailed take, pointing out that contract talks are never easy and rarely end with both sides feeling like they won. Sometimes a team gets a bargain, sometimes a player does, but the bottom line is that everyone understands the stakes. He reminded reporters of times in his own career when he thought he was done with the Warriors, only to come back and sign deals that kept him part of the dynasty. To him, the important part is not panicking in the middle of the process. Negotiations may feel like the end, but they're just part of the business, and he sees no reason Kuminga couldn't remain a long-term piece in Golden State. And while all that plays out behind the scenes, the focus for the rest of the roster is clear: keep pushing forward. The sense of urgency is real because this group believes that if they had been healthy last postseason, they could have made the conference finals, maybe even the finals. They know they had the formula, the rhythm, the energy, and that only injuries stood in the way. That kind of belief can fuel an entire year. They don't want to waste time easing into the schedule. They want to come out firing, targeting something like 15 wins in their first 20 games to set the tone. If they manage that, It gives them the cushion to experiment, make mid-season adjustments, and gear up for another playoff run where they hope to be at full strength. The training camp in San Diego was a big step toward that goal. It showed that the players are serious about building something together, not just showing up when the season tips off. It reminded veterans of those early championship days when off-court bonding mattered just as much as what happened on the floor. And it gave the younger guys a taste of what it means to carry the weight of expectations on a franchise that still believes it can compete for titles. Whether or not Kuminga resolves his situation soon, the Warriors appear locked in as a unit. They know the margin for error in the Western Conference is razor thin, but they also know they've got the talent, experience, and now the chemistry to make another run if they handle business from day one. What makes this Warriors season so fascinating is how many different storylines are running at the same time, and all of them tie back to the same question. Can this group turn last year's flash of momentum into something more permanent? Fans remember how the team caught fire after the trade deadline, rattling off win after win, and suddenly looking like the kind of dangerous unit nobody wanted to face. That run gave everyone a reminder of what happens when Steph is healthy, when Draymond is locked in, when the system is clicking and the ball is flying around the court. But it also highlighted the weaknesses. They were undersized against teams like Houston, who pushed them to a 7-game series. They had depth issues once injuries hit in the second round. And as much as they felt like a contender, those flaws showed up at the worst possible moments. That's why this year's emphasis has been not only on continuity, but also on subtle improvements that could be the difference in a brutal Western Conference. The addition of Jimmy Butler from the very beginning is already a huge upgrade in stability. His presence last year transformed the team overnight, but it came with a learning curve. Plays had to be adjusted on the fly, rotations were shuffled, and chemistry was built under pressure. Now, with a full off-season and a training camp together, the Warriors expect to be much more polished from the opening tip. Jimmy brings that edge, that competitiveness that mirrors Draymond's intensity but channels it in his own unique way. Younger players are soaking up what it means to practice with that type of energy every day, and that's exactly the kind of influence Golden State wanted when they made the move. It is not about replacing the dynasty core, it's about extending it with the right personalities. Another big reason for optimism is the way the team has embraced the mental side of preparation. Steph and Draymond have been clear that last season felt like playoff basketball months before the actual postseason began. That kind of intensity can burn a team out, but it also hardened them for the challenges to come. They know what it feels like to have no room for error, to have every game matter, and they're carrying that urgency into this season from day one. That's why the players talk so much about starting strong. 15 wins out of the first 20 games is not just a goal thrown into the air, it is a mindset. If they hit that mark, they believe it sets the rhythm for everything else. It gives them confidence, it quiets the outside noise, and it keeps the locker room focused on progress rather than distractions. Of course, the Jonathan Kuminga situation hovers over all of this like a cloud waiting to break. Fans are split, some wanting him locked in for the long term, others willing to move him if it brings in size or experience that can help immediately. The veterans know this dance all too well. They've lived through negotiations, rumors, and even betrayals, yet they also know how quickly things can turn once deals are signed and the season is underway. Steph's take was both empathetic and firm, letting Kuminga know he supports the business side, but demanding total commitment if he returns. Draymond's perspective brought the reality of contracts into the spotlight, pointing out that neither side ever feels like they truly win, but the team always has to move forward regardless. And Jimmy added his calm approach, reminding everyone that whatever happens will happen, and the focus for those in camp is to prepare with what they have. The truth is that Golden State has options. Rumors keep circling about potential moves, names like Royce O'Neal, Nick Richards, or Nikola Vucevic being mentioned as possible trade pieces. But nothing concrete has happened yet, and until it does, the team is working with what is in front of them. What excites the coaching staff is that the core remains intact. Steph, Draymond, Jimmy, Moody, and others who contributed to last year's surge are all here. The system is familiar, the plays are second nature, and that allows them to focus more on chemistry and execution than on teaching. The veterans believe this is the most prepared they have been since the Dynasty days because the groundwork is already in place. It is simply a matter of health and consistency. Health is the key phrase. Last season's run collapsed under the weight of injuries. If the Warriors had stayed intact, many inside the organization believe they would have been in the conference finals, if not the NBA finals. That belief has carried into the offseason, giving players motivation to push harder, train smarter, and hold each other accountable. Every workout, every scrimmage, every film session has been framed around the idea that the margin for error is razor thin. They cannot afford to lose weeks of rhythm because of sloppy habits or poor conditioning. They have to be locked in from the very first game. And that urgency has been visible in every media day answer and every training camp story that has come out. It also helps that Steph continues to set the tone. At this stage in his career, with multiple championships and MVPs, he could easily coast, but instead he remains the most locked-in player in the building. His leadership is not loud or brash like Draymond's, but it is consistent. He leads by example. He demands accountability in a way that makes everyone around him raise their level, and he has become a steady voice in a league where chaos is constant. The comparison to Derek Jeter may sound strange at first, but it makes sense. He is that calm, focused presence who always prioritizes winning above everything else. And that kind of leadership is invaluable when the outside world is full of speculation and drama. Training camp in San Diego showed exactly why this group could be different. The bonding off the court, the extra time spent on the floor together, the willingness to invest in each other before the season even starts. Those are the small edges that championship teams are built on. The veterans remember how those road dinners and late-night hangouts created trust during the first dynasty. The younger players are now learning the same lesson, seeing that being part of a winning culture is about more than numbers in the box score. It is about building connections strong enough to withstand the grind of a long season. That kind of chemistry cannot be faked, and it could be the factor that pushes Golden State over the top when the games start to matter most. All of this sets up a fascinating dynamic as the Warriors move into preseason and eventually into opening night. They're running it back with much of the same roster, but the energy feels different. The mindset is sharper, the chemistry is stronger, and the hunger is undeniable. They know the Western Conference is brutal, with teams like Denver, Minnesota, and Oklahoma City all ready to stake their claims. But Golden State believes it still belongs in that conversation. They do not see themselves as an aging group trying to hang on. They see themselves as a contender building momentum for another serious run. And with a full camp, a healthy roster, and the lessons of last year still fresh, the Warriors are preparing to prove that belief on the court. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. The Bay Area is buzzing once again, and this time the whispers are almost deafening. Kevin Durant is set to reunite with the Golden State Warriors. According to several insiders, the two-time Finals MVP has agreed to terms that would bring him back to the franchise where he reached the peak of his career. The move, if confirmed, would send shockwaves throughout the NBA, instantly reshaping the balance of power and reigniting memories of the dynasty that defined the late 2010s. Durant's departure in 2019 was seen as the end of an era. Golden State had captured 2 championships with him, and his partnership with Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green was considered nearly unstoppable. When he left for Brooklyn, many assumed the Warriors dynasty had officially closed its chapter. But now, years later, the possibility of a reunion feels almost surreal. Fans are flooding social media with speculation, debating whether this could be the Warriors' ultimate attempt to reclaim the throne. Though details remain scarce, whispers suggest that the deal was motivated by both Durant's desire to contend for another championship and the Warriors' urgency to maximize Curry's remaining prime years. The fit, of course, is undeniable. Durant's versatility, scoring prowess, and defensive impact would immediately elevate Golden State back into the championship conversation. For Curry, it means reuniting with a superstar who understands the Warriors system like few others. For Durant, it could be the chance to silence critics who questioned his move away from the Bay. Skeptics, however, wonder whether this reunion will reignite old tensions. Durant's exit was marked by reports of friction with Draymond Green, and many wonder how those scars might resurface. Yet in the NBA, winning often cures everything, and the prospect of adding another banner to Chase Center may outweigh any lingering bitterness. As of now, nothing is official, but the murmurs grow louder with each passing hour. If the rumors hold true, the dynasty that once felt like history could be on the verge of resurrection. And just like that, the Warriors may have found their missing piece again. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your input is essential for the Dubs community. Stay tuned for the next video.